I mean, obviously they're bringing all the same players, but is Penn State any different now than they were when you even faced them a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I think they're starting to gel. I mean, you look at their performances in their last two games. Early in the year, I think, getting ready to start conference play. When you lose a player like Frazier, you're still trying to identify roles and having guys step up into their roles, their new roles. And I think that as the season's gone along, they've, have a better understanding of what they're trying to get accomplished. The guys, their main two guys, scoring the ball for them, Marshall and Newville have still been doing a good job with that. And they've started to do a couple things differently defensively and even tweaking their offense. So they pose some different challenges. I mean, the game plan pretty much remains the same as far as understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are. But, I think that they're a little more cohesive than they've been, as most teams are throughout the course of the year.
So Marshall last week had 29 against Michigan State. What's he been doing well lately?
Yeah, and 10 rebounds. Just being relentless. It's really game by game who's going to step up for them. I mean, they have very capable scorers on that team. In that particular game, I think that, he got to the foul line probably a little more than he has in the past. He's the type of player you have to account for him. I mean, he's going to consistently make jump shots, especially if he's open. So, in that particular game, I thought that he came out with an aggressive mentality and kind of carried it on, throughout the course of the game.
Coach, what do you have to see from your team now? What are you looking for from here on in, especially these next couple games? What needs to happen for the Hoosiers?
Consistency. I mean, we've been very pleased with our toughness. It's a very tough, resilient group. And, just having that consistency on defense that we're looking for, I mean, it's a huge emphasis for us. And I think it bears out the numbers when you look at us nationally compared to other teams in the country. And it's something that we're taking pride in because we understand defense is what's going to be necessary for us to win this championship, whether it be the Big Ten championship or the national championship. And we don't hide the fact that those are our goals, and as you go through the course of the season, you really dive into the scouting reports, you really dive into each individual matchup, and the Big Ten is a great barometer for that because you're going to get a different style each and every night. So you really dive into the opponent and try to take away their strengths. And each night you go out there, it's like having a series of quizzes, before you get ready for the test. And going through those quizzes, I think that we've been very pleased with how we've been performing on the defensive end, as we prepare.
You talk about consistency. Can you talk about how this team needs to be consistent from one half to the next? You guys have had a lot of good first halves in the Big Ten. Second half, not so much.
Break it down even further. It's really possession by possession because that's what we chart. As a group, as a staff, and the players know it, and they take pride in it. Basketball is an imperfect game, so you're going to have some possessions that are going to be better than others. But when you string together possessions in the way that we're capable of stringing together, you see the positive result that you're looking for. So that consistency is just, we have a certain defensive coverage that we have on. We want to make sure all 5 people on the court at a time understand that coverage and really dive into it. And that's not just with a group of 5 starters or, whether the rotation is 10, 11, 12. That particular game is to make sure that everyone who hits the floor understands what their role is, understands what the defensive assignments are, and execute the game plan. And I mean, we're doing that possession by possession. That's how we grade it out. So if you look at things as a whole, which is how we look at things, we break it down individual possessions and as a complete whole, we've been pleased with how we've been grading out.
How important was Yogi in the first game, his defense on Newville, and I guess how much if you can get another good defensive effort like you got from him in that first one, how much does that help you guys out, in the rest of the spots, I guess, if you keep him growing?
I don't know, I'm happy you brought that up because, I don't know if that's a secret, something that we talked to Yogi about or not, but Yogi is a very good defensive player, and, and it's going to, obviously, his defensive prowess is going to bear out as we get further and further into this season, especially where we're trying to go. His ability to pick up, understand what our philosophy is on defense, and his ability to dive into the scouting report and hopefully, if not take away his opponent's strengths, limit them or force them into a high volume of shot to kind of get their numbers, is very important for us. Yogi is somebody who works at it, each and every day. He has that great ability to move on to the next play. very quickly, whether it be a good play or a bad play for him, and he's showing maturity beyond his years as far as his willingness to take on the opponents. Certain nights the best player, honestly, on the team, and really trying to dive into taking him away and limiting him. So he's been very good for us. He was that kind of started off for us, in my opinion. In that last game, his willingness to play new ball in the way he does, and it's a team defensive game. He understands the people behind him have his back, and I've talked to you before about the communication that's necessary for us to have a great defensive basketball team, and the more we communicate, on the ball and off the ball, I think that helps him feel more comfortable. And he's just gaining experiences as we go along, and he's getting stronger and stronger in that area.
You mentioned that the game plan won't really change the second time against Penn State, but is there anything that is different, maybe the preparation or the approach or even the mentality you want from your team the second time you face a team in a season?
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say the game plan wouldn't change, because it's always, you recognize certain things that they're doing well, and you have to prepare for it and account for it, and there's obviously certain things that we're doing that we feel like we've gotten better at, or certain things we need to tighten up that we're going to attack. But as a whole, you understand what their strengths are. Their strengths, are still their strengths, and they're doing certain things a little bit different. They were almost, when they win zone, they were playing 2-3 pretty exclusively in the past. Now they're showing some 3-2 looks in it. At times they had a couple possessions where they were running and jumping at the ball, full court pressure. So, from a philosophy standpoint, it's pretty similar, but, there's certain things. I have a lot of respect for their coaching staff. I've known them for years, so I know they're going to take a look at the game film like we took a look at the game film, and try to identify things that they can take advantage of or attempt to take advantage of, and we're going to do the same thing.
Why do you think Yogi has made such a smooth transition from high school to college?
Competitor. I think that first and foremost, me personally, I didn't see him a ton in high school, mainly in the summertime. I didn't see him very often in his high school season. But in getting to know him and being around other great players in the past, whether it be, just speaking of point guards, Kendall Marshall or Ty Lawson, and kind of identifying how those guys approach each day. Yogi has a very firm understanding of his talents, and he wants to be the best player. He may not ever vocalize it and say, I want to be the best player in the country at my position, but in being around him, I know that he wants to be. I know that he believes that he can be, and he's willing to work at it, first and foremost. I think it's one thing for a player to want to be good, another thing for a player to put in that sweat equity and go after it on a daily basis. If he starts thinking about what's going to make him a great defensive player, we have a discussion about it. He may go talk with Victor. He may go talk with Will. He talks about having to improve on the offensive end and how he can extend his range. Then he goes in the gym and he starts working with Jordan. So he's a self-motivated, self-starter type of young man that I truly believe the sky's the limit, because as he's gaining more experiences and taking things from his opponents and trying to identify what his weaknesses are and turn them into his own personal strengths, I think the sky's the limit for him.
You talked earlier about Newbill and Marshall. The first game you guys were able to hold them, I think, to 19 points, but since then they've emerged, I think, as the second leading scoring tandem in the Big Ten. Do you feel like they have, since you guys played them last, that they have improved, and are you guys preparing for them any differently now than you did the last game?
No, pretty much the same preparation. Have they improved? The flow, each game has a different flow to it. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was something that we did miraculously that stopped them. They've had better games over the course of the season. At times, one of them has a really big game while the other one is more facilitator. I think that they're coming in with a more aggressive approach. I think they recognize now that, for their team to be as successful as they want to be, that they're going to have to be aggressive. And the guys that are on the team with them, are doing a good job of getting them the basketball. But, I feel like, Ross Travers had a very good game against us. I think he really caused us some problem on the offensive boards when we played them. And, you know, when you have other players start to see about on our team, you know, if Cody Zeller doesn't score 20 points, everyone's wondering what's wrong with Cody Zeller. But when you have 5 guys averaging in double figures, you know, it tends to slow down. You know, obviously everyone can't score. So I think in that game, I thought they had other players on their team that stepped up. And then we did have one of our better performances defensively. I mean, I think they had 51 points in that game. So and it was a little bit slower pace than what they've been playing at these last few games. I think as a whole, their team average points per game has gone up to about 68 here recently. So, you know, when you're playing at a faster pace, it does lend the guys having a little more offensive freedom and putting more points on the board.
Not sure if you can
Time
speak
for
to this.
one more for him, and I gotta get the players in.
Okay, not sure if you can speak to this or not, but I think Vic was walking around with an eye patch after.
He'll be in.
Was that?
Vic will be here.
Okay.
You can ask him.
Okay.
So,
It's going to be iPad.
no,
The what?
no pirate.
Oh, an iPad.
Yeah.
They said an iPad. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to make our pregame video a little bit more fun, could you go get it?
Yeah, no, he can see. I'll punch him in the eye.
I'll bring the guys in now.
Thanks.